Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight, we're actually doing a listener request, or viewer request in this instance, over on our YouTube channel. I had the picture up, but I closed it. But it reads as such. And this was commented on our last video there too. Hi guys, off topic now, but have an idea suggestion for an episode. Can you do one on camera gear? Most of us are on social media, Insta, Facebook, YouTube. Would be great to hear what you/others are using and how. So for me, this question or suggestion, or whichever way you want to look at this, kind of has two parts. So for me, here's the minimum you need to get into it, and then we'll kind of go up from there, in my opinion. What about you, Ben? What's your feeling on this?
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, my friend. I have spent way too much time, money, and effort looking into camera gear for somebody who basically never records anything.
And I'm much the same as the funny part of this. And like I said, I actually have a few things out here that we're going to talk about, and I know you got some too, but yeah, so I guess let me start right from the first. To answer this question, I'm going to give you the most simplest answer. If you're just here for an answer, here it is. Your phone. In all honesty, like this here will get you going. I mean, be it Android, Apple, whatever the case may be, a good phone. Most cell phones now come with a minimum of a 32 megapixel camera that shoots at a minimum of 4K at 30 frames a second. I think mine shoots at 8K at 30 frames a second, 4K at 60 frames a second, and 1080 at 120 frames a second or something ridiculous like that. Like, your phone is going to do the most of what you need. Now, once again, this is if you just want to go out into the woods, or if you just want to shoot a video in your backyard. If you just want to shoot a video and get your content out there on the interwebs or internets, that's it. That's really all you need is a good phone. Not even a good phone, just a phone that shoots at least 1080. That would be the only suggestion I give you. Is even YouTube at this point has said, look, 720p, that's no longer high definition. That's standard definition. High definition starts at 1080p, and I would suggest that anything you're going to start recording on, that should be your benchmark. Now, Ben and I, we broadcast the podcast in 720, only because 5 years ago when we started this, 720 was still considered HD, and we are mainly an audio channel. Yes, we do this video thing here on YouTube, but it's more just for demonstrating purposes and to give you folks something to watch if you wanted to chat in with us or something like that. But let's not kid ourselves, folks. The majority of our listeners as a podcast come from audio sources, and they don't really care about video so much as the audio quality. And when we go through stuff, I scrub the audio, enhance it, and then upload that. But it's just audio from our videos here. I may doctor it up a little bit and get rid of dead pauses and air and stuff like that, especially when we screw up the IT part of it and we end up, first 5 minutes, one of us doesn't have audio or something. You folks over here in YouTube land get to enjoy the full unscripted stuff. But when I upload it over to Spotify and things like that, it's literally just an edited down version. But yeah, long story short, just your phone, shoot a minimum of 1080p. You don't even need a great piece of software to do any of the editing if you are really good at scripting yourself. And way back, and I'm talking back like almost the dawn of YouTube back, early 2000s kind of deal. When I first started making content, that's how I did it. I didn't have any money to buy video editing software. I just shot it in one take or used something like, if anybody remembers this, Windows Movie Maker, to literally just like snip videos together. Is the quality great? No. Will it get your point across? Absolutely. So that's my answer coming out of the gate. If you're just looking for the bare minimum to get into this, look no further than your pocket. Thoughts on that, Ben?
I tend to agree with most of what you said. A lot of my early videos were definitely shot on my phone. I still use my phone for a lot of it. A couple of suggestions is get yourself some kind of tripod that can mount to your phone, and then you can hook it in different spots so it just stays good. And you hit the nail on the head. Almost any modern phone will do a decent job. I have access to an iPhone and an Android. By far, I prefer my Android. And there's nothing wrong with my iPhone. It's a new modern one. I just absolutely despise it for everything it is.
We are not Apple product people, and by personal choice. Nothing wrong with the products. I myself am not a fan of them either.
if you can get it to work, if you've tricked it to doing what you want it to do, then more power to you. I'm impressed. But yeah, I really do, and I try to buy the most uh, basic uh, Android I can get, and by that I mean like no fluff. And so I used to buy the LGs, but they stopped making those, and now I've been buying the Nexuses.
See, I still got an LG and I still got one in reserve. When Robert found out LG was going out of business, he invested.
So the beauty with the LGs, for anyone who didn't know, they were giving a pretty vanilla version of Android, and they were putting out specs that were almost as good, if not better, in a lot of cases than the Samsung equivalents. And since nobody bought them, they basically gave them away in comparison for price. And that's why I bought them. I had absolutely no issues with them. The Nexus and now the Pixel line is provided by Google is a very good line too. But find a phone that works for you, honestly. Whatever works. The cameras in these things are almost always made by one or two companies. I think the majority of them are still made by Samsung. So you're still getting a Samsung chip in I think I don't know about recently, but even like the older iPhones were using the same camera. It's just your software in the back that makes the difference. But yeah, no, you can do a great job with this. Add-ons you can consider is additional mics. It does make a big difference, and just know with the phones, your zoom is more limited. So it's usually got to be something being taken within probably 30 feet or so if you want to really show anything. Beyond that, you're going to start wanting to look at different things. Scenery shots, obviously, you can do greater, but other than that, like if you want to show a person or an animal further away, you might want to look at something different.
So we have a first question here from Danny, Red Sand Adventures, and I figured I'd address this right before we keep going on because I think this train is going to take a little forward motion in a quick way once we start rolling down this hill. But I have a Canon EOS Rebel T6. Do you know much about this camera? And if so, do you think it would be a good beginning unit? Or would I be better off getting off with my Google Pixel 6 phone? Yes, I do know a little bit about the Canon EOS Rebel T6. Once upon a time, I was tossing up between getting one of those and a Nikon D6 or 4000, maybe. I can't remember what it was. But in any case, it's a good camera. There's nothing wrong with it. Once again, you're coming back to if you are just wanting to get into things, as long as it shoots 1080, which I know it does, and it has a decent mic, which once again I know it does, you're good to go. Same thing as with the phones, though. You may want to invest into an external mic, and the big thing that you're going to get with the Rebel there is the zoom factor. And this is what Ben was just talking about here is most phones, they're all digital zoom. They don't actually have any real telescopic zooming. There is a few phones out there. I know this is not a blanket statement, but for the majority, they don't have any kind of actual physical zoom. There is no app or there's nothing moving in and out to increase that magnification. It's all done digitally. As where with a camera like that, you're going to end up having a lot more manual zoom and a lot more control of what you want in focus. I know myself, not specifically for the for the bushcrafting world, but for the paintball world, a ton of my friends use those Canon EOS Rebels. Yeah, what Ben's got right there in his hand. See the camera? That is a manual zoom. It gives you a quality that you just can't really get in the digital. Yes, there's some great digital zooms out there, but once again, it's digital. It's filling in information it doesn't really have.
Yeah. Or it's a cropping feature. Digital zoom is generally a cropping feature. So what you're doing is you've still taken a picture of all this, but now you've cropped it down to here. And because you've got enough pixels, you can get away with it. But your quality will suffer. With this here, you are now still using your full sensor, and you're just focusing on a certain area. So it's just better. And then you can still crop on top of that. So if you're shooting at, say, 30 megs or whatever, and you zoom in, you're still shooting a 30 meg picture. If you want to crop a bit of that out, you still have a lot of room to go. I'm going to say I'm not as familiar with the Canon. I will tell you what I do know about Canons, though, is they are probably one of the more popular cameras out there. And so if you're looking for additional lenses or help, there's quite a community out there, and they're pretty easy to find spare parts and stuff for. So if you want upgrades and different things, filters. They're pretty readily available for the Canon series of um, cameras. I did go with the Nikon, and that is one thing I have here. We decided to go mirrorless, so we have a Z70 or Z50, and we absolutely love it. It works really well. Um, you can flip the rear visor down, so you can use it as a selfie camera, things like that. But yeah, getting a good camera is going to expand your abilities.
100%. And the follow-up question on that is, so would you recommend using and learning to use the manual mode? I'm going to let you take this one, Ben. I know my opinion on it. You have a more educated opinion.
I do recommend learning to use it, because once you learn to use it and you play with it, and honestly, what really taught me to use mine was actually my phone, because you can turn the manual mode on your phone and play with it and see what the reaction is right away, a little bit better than you can on your camera. And so then when you understand about shutter speeds and all the other settings, and sorry, I know them, it's slipping.
So shutter
But
speeds, ISO, aperture.
yeah, and once you look at the ISO and the aperture, you really get to know what you're doing. I mean, generally they're going to tell you keep your ISO as low as possible, um, because that controls your light a bit better, and then your aperture, you can, if you open that up, you're letting more light in, and so you can get your picture washed out. But if you want to prevent that, you can now put filters on the front, which is like putting sunglasses on. So it allows you to leave everything open a little bit longer and get a better picture. It works really cool on waterfalls. You can get that flowing movement look, that blur, that motion blur that really adds to a picture. So playing with these things, you can really get a neat feel for what's going to happen. But yeah, I do recommend learning to play with that. When you're in video, maybe not so much, but yet you can, for sure. And just get a feel for what the light conditions are, where you're to, and what you're trying to do, and you'll get the best out of it. Because the camera is going to look at the whole image and make its best guess. But when you're doing it, you're going to focus in on what you're doing. And I think they call it histogram. You can get those turned up, and it'll show you your noise levels and stuff, and you can sort of use that to help tune it in. So there's definitely some stuff you can play with. But it's good to know your gear, know what it's capable of, know what you want to use it for. I do have somewhere cleaning kit. Highly recommend a cleaning kit for your camera. Right here, especially if you're changing lenses and stuff, the chances of something getting in there and messing it up. But the filters, in case anyone's interested in what they look like, little discs, they go right on the end of your thing. There are some you can get to go inside. They're a bit different. But yeah, it's just like sunglasses. And it just allows you to leave the shutter open for longer without washing it out and getting a different feel to it. And that's how you get that cinematic look, if you know what you're doing.
And yeah, basically Ben summed it up. The only thing I would add in there is you can get some effects working in manual mode that you just can't get even with like the AI technology in some of the automatic modes. A lot of nighttime shooting I would do in manual mode. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big guy on the auto mode. I do not have the patience to sit down and play with stuff. That's why I let Ben do the question. But I do know enough about the manual mode, especially if I'm shooting at night, pictures, videos, whatever, that I can tweak some stuff and get some of the tones, colors, and even just some visual effects that you just can't quite get with the automatic mode. So yeah, it's 100% worth knowing it and how to use it, even if you don't use it exclusively after you're done. Like Ben said, know your gear, know what it can do, and someday you may just be sitting there and being like, you know what, yeah, this is what I like, and once you get kind of your own profiles set up on your settings, you'll probably find that you're using manual way more because you can make these little adjustments on the fly once you understand how it all works and get that perfect picture or that perfect video. And yeah, no problem, Danny. Anytime. I hope that answered your question to some degree. So moving on. Yeah. You can start off with a phone. We already covered that. The next step in there, as Ben said, would be some accessories, a good external mic, maybe a couple lenses or zoomers for your phone. A tripod is a good thing to have. And I think I seen you lift one around there for a second there, Ben, for a phone, didn't I?
I have a little. I mean, there's a attachment that's somewhere. I have a box of stuff here.
And I guess that's the other thing is, which way are you going to be pointing that camera? Phones and stuff like that, it's really nice for when you're doing selfie stuff because phones, they are designed nowadays to have some sort of selfie shooting mode. So you can see everything in real time and shoot a good selfie. Generally, you're going to need some sort of selfie stick or a tripod. Or if you really want to throw some money down, you can get something like this. And I mean, when I say money, I mean it's more than a tripod. You can get one of these gimbals. And I know Ben has a camera. You got a DJI camera that's built right in with a gimbal. Yeah, exactly. This here is actually a phone gimbal. It attaches to any phone. It just unlocks. And Ben would know way more about gimbals, I'm not going to lie, but I don't know if this thing will actually work without a phone in it. Well, it's trying. But yeah, see, this thing kind of does its thing, and you can up, down, and all this great stuff. And you know what? Like, it smooths stuff out, is what a gimbal does. It takes out that user error. And if you want your videos to look nice and crisp and flow nice and not jittery like somebody like me shot it, this is where a gimbal comes in. Yeah, Ben knows how to use it. You can see his actually working.
Yeah, I mean, they're really cool. So this is a DJI Pocket. It's one of the original version. There's, I think, a third one out now. But it essentially has a cell phone camera built into it, and I can set it up. It can track people's motions. It fits on different tripods. I use it for a lot of stuff. It goes in my DJI bag. I have that because I also have the drone, and it uses a very similar camera setup, which means when I set up my settings right, it's really hard to tell when I transfer from one camera to the next. And if you question what that's like, if you've ever watched a TV show and just by the color and the feel of the image, you can tell what the show is. That's because that show has a cinematic style that they stuck to, and they've kept their settings pretty well the same across all their cameras, and so it just has that feel when you're watching it. YouTubers and stuff do the same thing. With some of them, within a couple of seconds of watching, I can tell you most likely who did it. Jeremy would be a good example. I know his style pretty quickly now. If he created a new channel and decided not to say who it was, I think I'd pick it out on him. Like I could pick out his style.
That's the thing. Most people do develop a style, like Ben said. And that kind of leads into my next step I want to take with this, Ben, unless you have more you want to follow up on that.
No.
So the next step on that is when you actually want to get into getting a camera. Maybe you don't want to use a cell phone. You want to get into something like Danny was talking about there with like a Canon or a Nikon. Or maybe you just want to go with a camcorder. And here's where it gets to the pros versus cons. Why would you pick a camcorder over a camera? And why would you pick a camera over a camcorder or a video camera or whatever you want to call these things? And the big thing for me is price point for what you're getting. And I mean, a camcorder camera, whatever you want to call something like this. This is just a little handy cam. You can buy them very, very easily. Buy a couple of them, all the same settings. You never know when you're switching from one camera to another. And they're fairly cost effective. Like this thing here is only a little over $200 when I bought it back when it was still fairly new. I don't even know what it would cost now. It shoots in, I think it's 1080. I think all my cameras except for my big one shoot in 1080. But anyway, yeah, camcorders give you like that bang for your buck for a stationary camera. You're not going to pay as much as like one of those digital SLRs that Danny's talking about, but you get a lot of good bang for your buck. You can record videos. Generally, they're going to have hard drives. Most modern cameras now are going to have hard drives or SD compatibility or something like that. Gone are kind of the days of the writable CD and the cassette, and though you can still find those around, but most of the ones you're going to pick up are these. And the thing is, you can go with good brand names, and when I say good brand names, I just mean known brand names like Sony, JVC, and I thought I had a Canon here. No, it's another Sony. But anyway,
I got Samsung here.
Yeah, you can go with these brand names, But the thing is, there's a lot of knockoff brands now. For a fraction of the cost, you're still going to get a lot of good bang for your buck. It's something that you can drag out to the woods. If it gets damaged or ruined, you're not out a lot of money. Like I said, $200 is going to get you a decent camcorder. You can get a couple of them, get different angles. If one gets broke, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but it's not like ruining a DLR there. What did yours cost off the top of your head? You have yours is a Nikon, so I'm guessing it was like over $1,000 when it was all said and done.
Yeah, I think we ended up buying like a package, so we got the bigger lens, the smaller lens, a bunch of stuff. I think it was a sale. I think it still came to like $1,200-1,500 in total. It was an investment for sure. And then I've even like I got a small rig base put on this so that I can hook the tripod to it and still use the screen and a few other things that I couldn't do without it. So we've invested a bit of time and money into that, and it's generally used by my wife. It's more of her baby, but we have it. We use it for this thing. The video camera, I'd like to talk with this one. We bought it. It's rarely ever been used because honestly, our still cameras take really good video, but our video cameras didn't take very good still pictures. And that's kind of the limitation with your handy cams. They're good video cameras, but the stills you can take with them, and they do have that option, are lackluster.
Yeah, it's a step up from a potato. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it is. Remember the old flip phones from like the late 90s, early 2000s? That's what the stills remind me of. Like, yeah, you may be shooting that with a 12 megapixel camera. You're not getting 12 megapixels worth of pixels in that shot.
Yeah. And I think that the video camera itself, in general, is a dying thing. And it's because the high-end cameras really started to shine doing all of it. But you don't have to buy a DSLR or a mirrorless camera to get good pictures. There's a lot of other good options out here, and I have this here, and we've had this for years. It's an Olympus Tough. They still make them. $300-400. You can get ones like this, I think. Waterproof. You can use it underwater. You can drop it from a distance and it'll still survive. These are really good, and you lose the manual options for them, but for a lot of stuff we do, it still works. So if you're looking for something that's a bit more dedicated and not use your phone, point and shoots are still an option. Don't think that they won't do it. They'll do fine.
I was gonna say Fujifilm makes a fine picks, tough picks, and I think it's right around the $200 mark. I know I had one when you and I went out in the boat that time. My newest one, I think the in-laws have. They took it down to Mexico with them, but like you said, they're give me 1 second there, folks. Excuse me. They're good for like minus 15 degrees Celsius, which is minus what? I can't do the math in my head. But anyway, it's below 0 in Fahrenheit and good for like over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It can drop from 30 meters. It's good for 50 meters of depth for up to 30 minutes. And it's all for under $200. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
It's pretty good. Like Ben said, the biggest thing you're losing there is some of the manual features. And once again, you're getting into that. It's going to be limited zoom. It's going to have some digital zoom, but it's not going to be like one of those big lenses. You're just not going to get that kind of zoom.
No, I mean, and you do have to look, like when you're looking, there is point and shoots. We had one, it was an Olympus also, and it was an ultra zoom. And so the same thing, when you turned a ring, the lens went way out, and I think we were able to get some pretty good, like I think I've even held one that had like 130x. And you won't get, when you're looking at like a DSLR or SLR, they'll never tell you what the zoom is. They'll tell you your millimeters, because it's not a zoom. It's a focusing. You're changing your focal point. You're not zooming in, and so it's treated differently. And you have to sort of do math to figure out what that would be in equivalence. Yeah, I think this one has a limited amount of zoom, but it works good. You know.
And that's the thing. The point and shoots kind of fall into the same thing as the digital cameras here. Sorry, what?
3.6 digital or optical zoom, and then it has a digital zoom of like something much larger. But
And that's kind of like why I have my old camcorder. This is the first one I ever jumped into. Well, actually, I got it to record my wedding, but the follow up to that was this is where I started making my digital videos. This thing had 60 times zoom. That's optical zoom, not digital zoom. It was great for capturing stuff at a distance, and that's kind of where you're going to answer that question, what's better for you, a camera, a cell phone, or a DSLR? How much zoom do you need is going to be the big question. Are you going to be recording a lot of stuff that's far away? If you're going to be recording a lot of stuff that's far away, and I mean 100 feet plus, you might as well bite the bullet and start going into a DSLR. Yes, you can do it with the other cameras. You can get away with it, absolutely. But it's going to be significantly better with something where you can adjust that focus and that zoom and still have all that material to work with, like all the pixels and stuff, as Ben was talking about here at the first. That's just going to add a lot of quality to the stuff you do. So once again, it doesn't look like it was shot on a potato. If I shoot this video now, like I don't even think this thing does 720. In all honesty, I think like if it does, that's its maximum. But once again, I got this back in like 2008. You know what I mean? And it wasn't top of the line then, but the dang thing was worth $600. But now, like Ben said, his digital SLR there, a little over 1,200. Everything in my hand, including the new cost of that, and all these other camcorders that I have in my hand, I can guarantee you, I did not pay over $1,200 for everything that's in my hand. So this is what I go to the woods with when I go to shoot videos, because one, I'm never zooming into anything too far. I can walk to the camera. That's my style. I prefer to be up close and personal. One, because I didn't want to invest into an external mic, and that's another question you got to ask yourself. Two, I like being up closer to the camera. I find it can alleviate a lot of wind noise and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's just the way I like to record better. So I never needed to get into that heavy zoom, which is why I passed up on the DSLR when I was talking about it. This works great for me, but as Ben said, this is a dying piece of technology. It's getting harder and harder to find good quality cameras at a decent price point. Because most of them now, they want to pitch you like 8K recording and a whole bunch of other features, which if you want it, go for it. But it's unnecessary if all you're looking to do is kind of throw stuff up on YouTube. You can go that far in, absolutely, if you want to, but you don't necessarily need to.
So what got me into journey of cameras, and we haven't even talked to it, action cameras, it's another option there. We took a trip to Cape Breton, and we came around a corner, and Cape Breton, if anyone who's ever been to the Highlands in Cape Breton, is absolutely breathtaking. Similar to Grossmore in Newfoundland, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And we made it around a corner, and there was like a long pond down to the right side of the road from the way we were coming. And at the end of that pond, there was an eagle, and it was eating something on the rocks. And we tried to take a picture with our little camera, and it did not do it justice. All I got a picture was of a picture of a lake with some rock at the end, and you could not tell if it was a bird or whatnot. And that's when we said, we need zoom. We need some way to focus in on it. We didn't want to go DSLR at the time, simply because it was very expensive, and we didn't have the know-how at the time to really learn it. So we went with an ultra zoom camera, and we enjoyed that for years, to the point, I think it may still be around somewhere, but last time I tried to use it, the gears in it started grinding, and it just wasn't working right.
So you did mention action cameras. Why don't we jump right into that? Because that is kind of the follow-up I was going to do with the video cameras here. Is video cameras, once again, they're cheap, they do what you need it to, but action cameras have been another big thing that have come out have become really popular in the last 10 years, with a lot of action sports and stuff like that, thus pushing the action camera. It also started appealing to the outdoorsy people. Once again, relatively good price point, good feature quality, and they're really tough. Even the knockoffs tend to be half decent.
Yeah, so we managed to, I think we bought SK, or SJ 4000s is what we started trying to get. We ended up with a few different versions though, and what was it, what's the big action cam one that everyone got?
GoPro.
GoPros. These were rip-offs of the GoPros, but we were able to get a whole bunch of them. There was all kinds of kits. You could stick them to anything. I could stick them on my motorcycle. I can stick them on my canoe. I can stick them on my helmet. I can wear them on my wrist. I can wear them on my chest. I've seen people stick them on the fender of their cars when they're driving through the woods. You get a certain effect, a certain look. You can have it facing the tires and watch it go through pedals. You can put these where you would never put your DSLR. And movie, like the GoPros were used by big movies. They were, and they would stick them in places. And if you lost one, yeah, you were out a couple $100, but it wasn't that big of a deal comparison to being out, $4 or $5 for a top of the line video camera. And so you could use them in different places. They're controllable with your phone, so they have a Wi-Fi app to them, and you can turn them on. You can change them to do different things, and you can put them in waterproof cases. You can have them underwater, over water, stick them on the end of your stick, whatever you want. They're very versatile little cameras that you can stick almost anywhere and do almost anything with. And very simple. There's not much to them.
The only thing I found with action cameras, and I'm not going to say gripe, my only mention about action cameras, they tend to lack in audio quality, especially if you put them in those cases. The cases keep them protected. You kind of need to put them in the cases, but that also kind of affects the audio quality there. So as a backup camera to get that new perspective, like Ben was saying, they are a solid investment if you want to start getting that into your repertoire. Just realize you may have to do have to overlay some audio onto that, or it's just going to be like an additional video into a main one that you're already doing or something like that. Try not to rely on the audio quality from them. It is usable in certain situations, but it is noticeably lacking in quality.
Especially in the case, the fact is, though, you can get external mics for them. The audio quality would go up with that. The other option is you can get completely remote audio and record your audio totally separate from your video and then marry them back up. If you ever choose to do that, there are a few tricks, and one of them is before you start recording, you make a loud noise, and you make that noise visible on the camera so you can match them up, and if everything else is equal, then your sound and your video should be the same. And that's kind of what they do with the snap, the old rectangle thing with that's part of that is that closing makes a noise as well as a visual reference that they can go back to their audio and splice them together and make them work. So you can do the same thing, snap your fingers, stomp your foot, whatever it takes to make the noise and a visual cue, and then you can, in your editing software, link those up. I know DJI makes a really cool audio, like a remote audio system. There's a bunch of other big companies that do them. I'm sure there's a GoPro version. If you're really serious in videos, you will eventually end up going there. I am not there. I've seen them.
I know a couple people that use them. Once again, in the paintball side of things, a couple guys that I used to play with back in the day, they have actually made a pretty good name for themselves in YouTube doing paintball videos and stuff like that. And they have gone to these remote systems that Ben are talking about, and the sound quality is absolutely phenomenal. When they're using the action cameras, because they do use GoPros and Tachyon action cameras, they use the external mics from that, and it is awesome audio quality. But once again, above my price point, above my knowledge point at this point. I've never needed to dive that far into it.
But another thing, and I know you have one of these too. I know we both talked about these things. The drones, and I don't care which drone you get. I went with the DJI. I really love it. It's under 250 grams, which means I can fly it almost anywhere. And so it takes amazing video. It can do 4K. It can do it all. There is no sound.
Yeah,
on these.
Exactly. Because with a drone, the only thing you would hear is the whirl of the motors.
And I'm sure there will be eventually a version that comes out that has one, and it just automatically filters out its own noise. I'm sure that's in the works. But even so, these things fly a long way away, and there's probably no noise that's relevant to what you're recording going to be caught on it. So again, if you're doing this stuff, you're going to end up doing an audio overlay of maybe some music, or maybe you talking, or some combination thereof, or you have to pre-record sounds to put in there. That being said, there's also people out there, believe it or not, that will match sounds to your video.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you watch the slow motion videos, uh, generally the sound on that is artificial. It's not something that they recorded and just sped up or shrunk down. There's actually somebody who kind of thinks about it and says, this is what that sound would sound like, and then creates those sounds artificial.
And I mean, they do that in a lot of big movies and stuff. You know what I mean? A lot of your sound is fake sound. It's that put it in post production. So just a couple comments here to catch up. I just didn't want these people to think we forgot about them. We're just moving in the direction of their questions. So the Drifting Spore, I've been using a cell phone just for the simplicity of it. Record, edit, and upload all on one device. Good point. There is usually some sort of editing software as well as uploading software on a phone. Would like to shift to a camera, but the learning curve for editing has me hesitant. Here, I use my collection of vintage film cameras for still shots and phone/action cameras for video. I'll invest into a DSLR one day, but it feels like voodoo compared to the analog. So there is a learning curve to going up, but believe it or not, it is not terrible to get into, lengthy to master. A lot of the controls and stuff like that on the newer cameras and things, they're very intuitive to get the basics. And I do mean the basics. You're going to be on auto shot, but you'll be shooting pictures by like the end of the hour. Now, to get into manual mode and actually use the full potential of your camera, now you're driving down a rabbit hole. You know what I mean?
I truly think that if you've managed to do it with an older film style camera without the advantages of a digital, then your skills and knowledge you've picked up there are very transferable. And it's actually a shorter learning curve on the newer cameras. So if you want to get into it and you want to put some effort into it, you can learn a lot on one of these in a shockingly short period of time. And I would say you could get yourself to like the 80% knowledge really quick. It's that last 20% that makes the difference between an amateur and a professional, and that does take a little bit longer. But yeah, the immediate feedback, the fact that you can shoot something and then play it back right away. You can, I mean, most of these can wirelessly hook up to your phone, so you don't even have to pull the card out, move it. You can pull it on your phone and watch it. And I think it's called SnapBridge, but there is an app for the Nikon that you can do your editing right on your phone. So even if you're used to editing on your phone, you still edit on your phone. You can get, again, about 80% as good as you would on a desktop trying to use the better software. And that's, again, where the difference is. You have a little bit more control, a little bit more power on a desktop because you have the ability to use a mouse and a bunch of buttons where everything else you're trying to do on a screen, you lose some of that very fine control, and where it becomes time consuming.
So Red Bear has a good point here too. I've got a hard time justifying the extra weight of packing multiple cameras in the woods. I like the phone because I have a communication device, camera, and navigation device all in one package. And that's going to be another big question you have to ask yourself before you start buying anything. Is the video the main point, or is it an afterthought? And in Ben and I's case, unfortunately, as much as we like to say, the reality is the video becomes an afterthought for us. Getting out there is usually our first thing. We chat, we want to play with our new toys, we want to try some stuff in the woods. The last couple times Ben and I have gone out together, the videos unfortunately have been sort of afterthoughts. Only because we got so interested in what we were doing out there. And this is the other thing, like I said, you're going to have to ask yourself, be honest with yourself. Is the reality you're going to go out there to have fun and you just like to shoot some videos in the process? Don't sink a whole bunch of money into your camera and stuff yet. Are you going out there to shoot the videos because that is your plan for making content? Then yeah, your camera and your audio become a lot more important because now you're dragging all that extra equipment out there for the purpose of shooting that video. It's less about the other gear you're taking, more about the video you're shooting, and you're probably going to start cutting down on your personal gear before you start cutting down on your digital gear, as where Ben and I at this stage of our game, chances are we're going to start cutting down on our digital gear long before we even consider cutting down on our other gear.
Well, and this is the thing. A lot of people that I know that talk to me, and you know, sometimes I get beat up a little bit. I know who would beat up Ben, but there are people who would try. Um, and they're like, oh, why don't you take more video? You're always out there, you're doing this, you're doing that. Why don't you have like video proof of what you're doing? And the thing is, once you decide to video it, it becomes a different thing. It becomes more about the video and less about the event. And to me, that takes away the thing. So I would love to have video of me catching a fish or me canoeing down a river. But when I do that, I have to stop what I'm doing. I have to set the camera up. I'm now worried about the camera. Is it working? Is it recording what I need it to do? I'll oftentimes have it, like a lot of my stuff hooks to my phone, so I can still control like the DJI stuff hooks to my phone. Even the Nikon I hook to my phone. I can do a lot of the manual settings from my phone, which is awesome. But all of a sudden, it becomes all about the video. I'm staring at my phone, I'm looking at my phone, and I'm no longer in the moment. Um, and that's where it sort of takes something away from it. Yes, it's great because I get to share it with everyone who's interested. But unfortunately, the thing is, I found when I was doing it, and I think you've noticed this too, and I know I've been it with people who do record a lot of the stuff. It isn't the same. Like it becomes a little frustrating.
Well,
Uh,
prime example just for us, the last time we were out to the lake, we had an entire day where we kind of just did our own thing. And then at the end, we're like, all right, we really got to get some of our videos done. And it changed the entire dynamic of being out there. It was less of about the adventure and more of like, man, we're trudging through this to try and get content done.
yeah, it does. It makes everything longer. I've hiked with a good YouTuber, somebody who does good video. We ended up rewalking some of the areas multiple times. We'd have to stop while they went and set up the equipment. If we were going to do something that one of us or all of us thought, hey, this might be a really good video opportunity, and now we had to stop and sort of plan out our moves so we could have the cameras in the right direction so we weren't blocking it. And all those tasks, setting up a tent, splitting the wood, building a fire, boiling the pot, all those things now took 2 and 3 times longer than they did before, which means you're not doing as much fun stuff. Um,
And
so,
there is a group of people out there where that is their fun. And we are not
yeah,
knocking these people in any way, shape, or form. It's just,
absolutely not.
I'm out there more for the experience.
I think it's all the more, just be very appreciative of anyone who does good videos and you go and watch it and, it's ASMR or whatever you guys call it, where you can watch a guy and he sets up the firewood just so and gets the little fire starter in there and you get the really cool angle and the lighting is just so perfect and you get the hand that just goes in and it all looks like it's done white, right? And looks professional. That didn't take him the 5 minutes it took you to watch it. He probably spent like 15, 20 minutes setting everything up and in another 5, 10 minutes recording it. Probably multiple takes from multiple angles doing the exact same thing over and over again. So, he maybe even longer. And then when they went home post production, it is a shocking amount of time editing a video. It's not just clip, clip, clip. Oh, yeah, it's going to be good. Throw some music on. You have to think about everything, and it takes effort and time.
There
Uh,
is a whole art to transitioning, which, if anybody doesn't know, transitioning is just going from one shot to the next. Have you ever noticed that good YouTube videos, they're not just a picture on somebody staring at the camera nonstop talking like we're doing right now, Ben, I may point out.
yeah. Oh, no,
But
I'm
it's
aware.
it flows, you know what I mean? You get to see different angles, you see different parts of the project that's going on. These things need to transition and flow and make sense. There's a whole knack to that. Like, you can go to school to learn how to do that. You can also go on YouTube and learn the basics of doing that, and then once again, like the DLR, you can learn a bunch of it really quickly and then take forever to master any one part of it. That's why people go to school for it and then come out and need to do 5, 6 years worth of experience before they start getting into the field.
And I would argue that you can learn all of it on YouTube. Uh, and I can't say that enough. Like anyone who tells you, oh, you have to go to school, you have to do that, you can become an awesome photographer, videographer, just by going to the school of YouTube and using a few other internet sites, or just paying, because there's some online courses that are really good to get some of the knowledge. But there is a ton of information that's very freely available out there, and then it's just it's doing it and then practicing it, and that's the big thing. Get out there, go different lighting situations, play with your camera, learn its capabilities, and then do the editing. There's great editing software that's free. There's great editing software that costs money. There's great editing software that's a subscription base. Choose the one you need.
And seeing we're on software, we might as well jump down that rabbit hole too. Like Ben said, there's lots out there that are free and paid, and there's more software than just like one video editor, for instance. You may need a video editor plus an audio editor plus a transcoder. Like there's different levels you can get into this again, depending on the software, or sorry, not the software, the hardware you're using. I mean, for me, what I'm doing here, we're using an open source software. If anybody's wondering, like this is no big secret. Our podcast is shot exclusively using OBS Studios. It's an open source software, but I mean, we still constantly have problems with it, mainly because we're kind of teaching ourselves, you know what I mean? And then they'll update something, the layout will change, and then we got to try and relearn it. We go online, we do some research. Like there's time involved in this, and this is why sometimes our podcasts start a little late. Oh, hey, OBS needs to update before we start. Hopefully they didn't change anything. Fingers crossed. And then something's changed, or it'll change one of our settings, and we take 5-6 minutes to try and figure it out.
Was it 2-3 weeks ago? The problem we had is OSB went update it, but then it said I had to update the drivers on my video card for it to work correctly. So that was another step that we hadn't planned on doing, and it would not work with the video card in its standard settings.
So there's all
it
these.
Doesn't help that I got 2 video cards on my laptop.
And that's the thing, depending on the hardware. Like, once again, what I'm shooting here, the camera that you folks out here are looking at me on is not the one that Ben's looking at on. I have 2 separate cameras running here just to support the setup that we have here so we can get this flow going here. And if anybody was to look at us in a professional podcast, I can guarantee you they'd be like, yeah, those guys are pretty low budget. Low budget still means that I have 3 monitors set up some nights, 2 ring lights, another light, 2 cameras, a microphone with an encoder box, and a bunch of other crap down here. Like, there is a lot to it, depending on how far you want to get into it, and we're just shooting a podcast.
Yeah. So you can do it with very little. Believe it or not, when we started, it literally was the camera and mic on the laptop.
Yep.
The very first episodes were done with that. Afterwards, we started bringing in better mics. Same thing. Like I have a better mic, better cameras. We updated, and it wasn't overnight, and it was a lot of playing with, and even setting up studios. Like I've set up now 4 studios since we started.
Yeah, and I mean, this is my office space. If anybody hasn't been able to tell, this office is all encompassing. Plus, it's a guest bedroom. Ideally, I would love to turn this into a free working studio. And out there in the sunroom, I did have a free working studio for a while until that needed to be taken over with storage. There is a lot of avenues you can go down with this stuff, is all we're warning you about, folks. Not that it's bad. It is a great experience, and we're still learning stuff and improving stuff all the time. Like, once again, we're at episode, what did I say? It's 266 at 52 episodes a year. We're well over 5 years into this. And I mean, I'm still looking at stuff to improve this program. I know, can't believe that it could get any better than this, but we are still looking to update stuff. We constantly, like, the next thing I'm talking about is potentially updating my computer. Just because the encoding and stuff that we're doing here, like we broadcast this live, but then I got to re-encode it to rip it to audio and stuff like that. And the basic video editing I'm doing, I'm now looking at dropping another $1,000 on just computer updates. These are all things you got to think about down the road. Do I need to? No, but I'm at that point where I can justify doing it. And I'm not even making money off this. I should say we're not even making money off this. If Ben is, he's holding out. But, and like, this is all donated stuff. So depending on what you folks out there want to do, realize that sometimes this is going to be your best option if money is a big factor. It was with us starting out. I mean, once again, 5 years into it, we are still buying tiny add-ons to try and make this better content, easier for us, smoother transitions. Like when we first started, as Ben said, before we started using OBS here, it was just him and I on 2 laptops. We couldn't bring up the websites. We couldn't bring in that third person. We couldn't show products. It was very, very low budget. And not that we're high budget now, we're just starting to take these little stepstones. We now have the availability. We can bring in 2, 3, 4 people. I can have somebody call my cell phone and I can patch that through the live audio for with this box over here, which hooks up to my mic. Like, these were all things we talked about and decided we wanted. If you're going to start shooting videos to put up on YouTube, these are the questions that you're going to start asking yourself down the road. So it's definitely worth thinking about it before you ever start taking that first step. How far do you want to go? Is this a passing hobby? Or do you want to make something off it? Is this going to be a passion like it is for Ben and I? Now, the next question becomes, is it a passion or is it going to be a business? Are you going to try and push this to the point where you want to make money off it? These are all things like, how far down that rabbit hole do you want to go and how much are you willing to invest up front?
And yeah, I mean, for us, it has been a passion. It is a hobby, and it's something we absolutely enjoy. And if anyone who's watching and sticks around, we very much appreciate you, because you know, your comments and your emails and stuff, that's what makes this, that is our currency. That is what pays us to do this. We get no monetary reward for this. Our reward is to know that somebody's listening and cares to hear what we have to say, and we are very appreciative of that. And yeah, neither of us have made a single sentence. In fact, if I was to guess, both of us have put a fair amount of money in it. I think one of us has put quite a bit more than the other.
I'm not allowed to talk about how much money I got into this. I'm not allowed. It's forbidden in my house.
But like early on, a lot of stuff that we had, you had monthly bills that you paid for this, that we were able to find better methods that were cheaper or free, and things that offset some of this, and that's great. But yeah, it is what it is, right?
Once again, catching up on our comments here, because I know we're coming up on our 1 hour and I don't want to miss anybody's stuff here. Kiera, I have a DJI Osmo Action 3. I might be taking a small stroke, folks. I'm not sure. Which is waterproof without the case. The audio on that is pretty good. All things considered, I can mount the camera on the dash of my Jeep and talk to the camera. And that's the thing. There is some good action cameras out there. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying notably with most action cameras, audio quality can be an issue. It's one of the parts where they save a little bit of money. They know you're going to be putting this thing in extreme conditions. Why waste the money on all that extra audio equipment in there? Just throw some cheap parts in it and away you go. There are a couple good ones out there. Like I said, the GoPro Hero lineup at the higher end without the case has excellent audio. The DJI ones, they tend to have good audio until you dunk them in water and take them out of water, and then it takes a while for the audio to dry back out. And things like that. Red Bear Tactical, I've always had a harder time spending the money on a high-end camera. I'd rather spend the money on my sleeping bag, a stove, or a pack. And this is kind of where we are. It's very hard to find disposable income that you want to drop on software for a passion project, though we always still manage to do it somehow against perhaps ours and our better half's judgment. And Kier, once again, it's a prime complaint of alone contestants. The need to film what they are doing doubles the time and calories needed to perform the task. Just like Ben was saying, if you're going to be shooting good videos and you want quality videos and you're going to put some passion into this, you're going to allow 3 to 4 times the amount of time for any one project or task than you normally would. So go into it thinking that's your end goal, because you're not going to be disappointed.
The alone contestants also complained about the extra effort of carrying the camera gear around, the extra batteries, the cameras themselves. Some of them had even said they would have moved their location more had it not been for the camera equipment and the boxes and stuff. Like, even those little moves made a difference. So yeah, it's a factor, a very real factor.
I think all in all, we've covered a ton of stuff here tonight, down rabbit holes I never even meant to get into, but it's all good information. If you can sift through this entire podcast and pull out the important points, I guess to sum it up in the last couple seconds here is, if you just want to do this for fun, don't sink a ton of money into it, because you can go down a deep rabbit hole here. If you do want to sink a little money into it, decide if this is going to be a passion project like Ben and I, where you kind of really have to temper the money you're putting into it for what you're getting out of it, Or are you going to try and make a go of this and become like an influencer or whatever they're calling themselves nowadays? Because that's still viable. Like, don't get me wrong, that's a valid want for somebody. But realize to get to that quality, you're going to be doing stepping stones unless you're willing to throw a ton of money down up front, which most YouTubers don't have that kind of startup income. Yeah. You know what I mean? Once again, not a broad brush here, but a pretty good brush stroke is most YouTubers start off with limited stuff and then they build up to it. Go into it knowing that, or if you want to jump right to the top, don't get disappointed when it takes a little while. I guess on this side of it. And don't underestimate your audio stuff. Not only for when you're shooting the videos, but post-production. If you want to put some audio over something, I can tell you this mic here sounds significantly better than like the one that's on my little webcam up there that I'm talking to Ben with. And if anybody ever wonders why I look over this way, once again, Ben's on this side, you folks are on this side, 2 cameras up here. That's why I'm always looking around.
Yeah, you actually hit some really solid advice. I have heard it argued, and I've seen it, and now it's true. Poor audio is worse than poor video. If your video is poor, people will still watch it. They will put up with lower quality video. But if the sound is hard to hear and understand, they will tune out pretty quick. And there's been studies on this, and it's pretty clear. So if you're going to concentrate on something, concentrate on making sure your audio is good and clear. If you're looking to buy a camera, if you're thinking that your cell phone isn't good enough, or even if it is good enough, but you're going to replace it, really think about the type of video and stuff you're taking, and make sure you have one that really helps with that. One of the things is some are better at selfies, some are better at this, some are better at that, and just sort of make sure that it's capable of doing everything you want to do. One of the things with, say, like your DSLRs and your mirrorless cameras is they are awesome, don't get me wrong, but some of them don't do certain things. Some of them you can't use as a webcam, and if that's something you need, make sure that that's something you're getting, because some of them you can plug into your computer and it won't let you stream. So sometimes you want a streaming one. Look for that. If Zoom is something you're going to want to do, get something that can reach out, and make that decision early on. And if, get what you can afford. And I 100% agree. If your passion is getting out there and having fun, probably don't spend most of your money on your camera. Get yourself a really good sleeping bag. Get yourself a decent tent. Get yourself a decent sleep system. Because, you go out there 2 or 3 times and your sleep system, really doesn't work, you're just not going to go back out.
And that's the thing. You are not going out to freeze.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Don't freeze. Don't be uncomfortable. Nobody likes sleeping with rocks in their back or, uncomfortable ground. There's a reason, we tend to do hammocks now. We just don't like sleeping on the ground anymore.
I'm fat and old, Ben. You can say it.
So, think about it. The video, if it is your primary reason for being out there, you're probably going to want to spend more money. But also realize that there are people out there that will convince you that there's one and only camera. There's not. There's plenty of options, and you can do with what you have. The best camera, someone said one time, is the one you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, why look further than your pocket if your phone's going to do everything that you want it to do, in all honesty?
Yeah. And if it's not, start writing down what it doesn't do, and then see, is there something that can do everything your phone does and that? And make a decision. Is that extra thing worth spending an extra $1,000, $2,000, right?
Yeah, because once again, it's one of those things. Learn from the folks that have bought a ton of camera equipment because they're like, oh, I just want something different. Ben actually did a ton of research on his DSLR. I'm not saying anything there, but for all my little camcorders here, it was just, oh, I want something to record this. So I bought my first camera. Oh, I want something that does at least 720. I bought my next one. Oh, I want something that does at least 1080. I bought my next one. And then I finally was like, okay, what do I actually want? I want something that zooms in half decent, will record in at least 1080p, has a little bit of a manual adjustment. Figure out what you want first before you start dropping money. because otherwise you're going to get disgusted at how much you're spending, and it's going to ruin the whole experience for you.
So you can, just for example, if you just need a zoom and just once in a while, this is a little tiny one. This gives you more of a fisheye view, a little bit of zoom. It's just an add-on lens you can snap to your the back of your phone. There are bigger telescopic ones that can do like 200x, and you just mount your phone to it. If you're going to get large zoom, also realize you need good stability. The more zoom you have, the more the camera's going to shake, and you think, oh, I got a tripod. You put a good camera on a cheap tripod, it's still vibrating. And it shows up in the picture. And one of the things you need for a tripod to work well is weight. And you'll see some of the good ones have a hook underneath, and guys will hang their entire camera bag off the bottom of that hook to give it even more weight and keep it steady, so that the light breeze doesn't cause the camera to go swipping around 4 or 5 feet. If you're zoomed out, 4 or 5 feet isn't much.
No, an inch at your camera can be 10 feet at 200 times zoom.
Yeah, or way more. So keep that in mind too. If you doubt it, go down to any of the camera stores, ask them to see some of their best cameras, the longest zoom right in, and try to like look at it at a sign across the street or down the road, and you'll see it's all over the screen. It's like
stability. And the other thing is the fake stability, like the digital stabilizer. They can add. They have their spot. Don't get me wrong, but they add some weird effects sometime. So don't cop out on a good tripod thinking that you're going to make it up digitally. Digitallys are tools. They're not meant to be crutches. You know what I mean? They add when you already have a good base. They're not meant to be a cover for not having the basics. Does that make sense, Ben?
100%. Agreed.
Anyway, that's it for me. We're up to our hour. Anything you want to close there, Ben? Closing thoughts?
No, I kind of just did it.
Perfect. So that's it for tonight, folks. Hopefully we answered some of that question. If you folks have any other questions, definitely reach out to us. See if you can hit us up on one of our social medias down there. Leave a comment to this video, and we'll try our best to give you answers to your questions, much like we did tonight. Are we professional photographers? Absolutely not. Have we dabbled in it for the last little while? Yeah, and we'll tell you what not to do more than anything, because we've done the what not to do. Hopefully you folks go out there and you will not make some of the same mistakes we did. We hopefully have saved you a little bit of aggravation. I wish you the best in what you're getting out there to do. And if you find some secrets, things that just didn't work for you or worked really well or any of that, come back, throw a comment onto this. Once again, don't let other people repeat the wheel. We're all out there together. Let's learn from each other.
100%. Yep. You hit it right on. Get out there, have fun.
Night, folks.